Alright guys, welcome back to the Monthly Cup. Thank you very much for your patience, and I hope you guys enjoyed the game over on Gravekeeper's channel. We have another match coming up for you. I apologise if there's a tail on my camera. I have a very curious cat living with me. But yeah, Lou90 going up against You Real Be Damned. But before we talk about this, let's take a look at the bracket. Yeah, so we have Don Pork and Alvar taking it on again on the other semi-final game, which will be featured over on Gravekeeper's channel. So if you want to support either of those players, be sure to head over there. But if you'd like to check out Lou90 going up against the new and upcoming You Real Be Damned, we'll be featuring that match very soon. And one thing Scorch did mention during the break to me is the bounties haven't been claimed yet. This is very unusual.
Yeah, so I very quickly kind of looked back at our previous brackets because it's very easy to see in this style of graphic that we have. And this is actually the latest that both bounties have still been up for grabs. Very usually through the monthly cups, one of the bounties still exists as late as the semifinals. But very likely, pretty much every single month, one of them is claimed within kind of the second or third round is the usual spot where one of those goes. So this is the latest that both bounties have existed. So it's very interesting to see if, we may end up with a rematch of last month's monthly cup with Alvar versus Lou.
With both bounties intact until that final
both
game.
Bounties, the big money match.
Oh, that could be awesome. But first, Lou has another match to tackle. He just had a tense game against Sunkichi. But now, You Real Be Damned has been waiting. A new player on the Faeria competitive landscape, experienced in Magic the Gathering. You Real is actually a Magic the Gathering card, which we came to find out, and has the divine keywords. That may be why she might be damned in this in this instance. But Lou, on the other hand, no stranger to the semi-finals.
Yeah, and very interesting that both of these players have got to this point with the exact same stat line. 3-0 in both of their first two rounds, and then a hard-fought 3-2 victory in the quarterfinals there to match up now in the semifinals. So You'll Be Damned making his inaugural monthly cup appearance, but putting up a massive performance so far.
Taking out Sweetie and Mino Caro on the way as well, two very established players. So I'm excited to see what You Real will bring to the table in this next game. So we're going to get into it, guys. Lizard and Scorch are going to bring you the action.
All right, welcome back in again, Lizard. What are you expecting out of both these players? Are we going to get the full 5 games like we've been expecting, or will Lou bring it strong like we saw him 3-0 in the earlier match?
I'm predicting that Uriel will start with a Yellow Rush. At least I've heard from others that he started Yellow Rush. So probably he will win this first matchup, since it's very good against White Tempo. Both of these hands are terrible though, so I can understand why you would get rid of it. Keeping the Prayer though, that's interesting.
Yeah, Prayer is one of those cards that I could see keeping. It's an odd one because you need a creature to trigger the Prayer, but you really want Prayer when you have the creature. So it makes sense that you would want to keep it, but sometimes you go, well, I have to mulligan it because I need that creature instead. So it was very interesting to see him keep it there, but Lou does end up with a decent enough mulligan. Outland Ranger will at least contest something. Soul Drain will be able to clear another creature, especially if the Demon Wrangler comes down to actually get a sacrifice, like we see in You'll Be Damned's hand. That'll clear off that 5/2 Demon Wing very easily.
Yeah. Let's see if the Outland Ranger can carry on this early game and get Lou into a late game position that's comfortable for him and enables a win. So not going for the desert in the middle to give yellow as little as possible to get aggressive lands and to step on your own lands. Usually it's good to deny these spots.
And it's awkward in this situation too, because now your second desert, even though you now have haste creatures, isn't able to hit the orb next turn. So you're kind of in a situation where you're going desert next turn, but probably not playing anything again. So then do you go prairies instead? And it just ends up being a little awkward for You'll Be Damned and the way that the lands have started. Where if he was player 2, for example, you have that Explorer, it makes your rush start so much stronger with where your lands could be.
Yeah, exactly. demon picked up here for Lu, not quite what you're looking for in a race scenario. Those 2 damage a turn, they hurt. They hurt a lot, especially against Yellow Rush.
Yeah, it of course is a very strong stat line creature to defend against rush decks, but when you're on the back foot from the outset, just because of the archetype that you're playing, you don't want to have that damage building up over time, or your opponent just ignoring that creature and letting it burn you down and do the work for them, essentially. So you definitely would have liked to have seen something like a Charger, maybe even another Outland Ranger would have been good enough for Lu there, but...
Oh, it looks like he's going for the demon in the middle, actually. And the buff on the Outland Ranger.
Yeah, the Campfire comes down just to play around Soul Drains. Wind Soldier is possibly wasn't going to be able to be played in a position where it could have killed the Ranger, but now an Air Elemental picked up is actually massive.
Yeah, that's insane. He now gets to clear the Outland Ranger and gets to hit face and develop Demon Wrangler as well as the trigger the prayer.
Yeah, not to mention this actually sets up a really nice trade into the demon with the Air Elemental. Now that does depend if he goes for like the Demon Wrangler to sacrifice the follower here, but it is a situation where you possibly have a couple really big creatures that Lu might struggle to deal with here.
Yeah. And on a note here, do you actually play the Demon Wrangler aggressive? So that way if the Shaitan value trades, you get more face damage? Or do you actually play it behind, but then it's kind of useless because it has to walk up a turn and to actually become useful?
Yeah, I think I like it in that more aggressive spot, but it might end up blocking your... It's kind of awkward in this situation. What you go for instead. It almost would have been better if you had drawn the Monk first, but you needed that draw off the prayer. Because then you could have gone for the follower over onto the well and sacrificed that haste damage for the 5-2 in a more protected spot, but does go for the safer play with the Demon Wrangler here, and another Soul Drain picked up is really nice for Lu to clear here.
Yeah, so essentially you get to clear the whole board here. But then again, you're just left with a demon and you don't have any mobility at the moment.
Yeah, and Demon sits in no man's land. It's not collecting, which isn't necessarily what you want Shaitan Demon to do, but it's not getting you any fairy income to get more creatures onto the board. It's not in an aggressive position, and it's hurting you every turn. So really kind of the downside trifecta of this creature.
Exactly. However, Lu hasn't picked up any mobility yet, and we know that Yellow Temple has a wide arsenal of mobility at its disposal, such as the Origin Fanatic, the Flash Winds, and the Training. All of these cards could be coming up real time soon, and then this demon might actually get aggressive.
And the Soul Drain also really nicely actually gets full value out of the HP recovery there. If Lu was already at 20 life, for example, those Soul Drains have less of an impact, but the fact that he had already taken some damage and some of the self-burn from the demon, he's actually able to recover there, and that gets full value out of that Soul Drain.
Yeah, this is looking very good. I guess Uriel will just start smocking here, try to get these prayers in. And another Demon Wrangler is a very nice pickup as well. So you can +1 and develop that as well.
Yeah, sacrifice the other Demon Wrangler. Always nice when you can cycle these cards into each other. Of course, Demon Wrangler usually targets something like a Kaleem's Follower the first time, but then Demon Wrangler becomes a very good target for your second Wrangler. So really nice pickup there. Now Lu is going to struggle a little bit to catch up, because even if this Shaitan Demon kills off the Demon Wrangler, that Soul Drain looks perfectly lined up to finish that creature off, and it's
exactly.
maybe a tough decision of if you clear it or if you allow it to do another 2 damage at the cost of one of your creatures.
I mean, he draws into his mobility now, but the demon is nowhere near where he could possibly hit face, and Lu knows that. The worst thing about this is that he has to keep making lands essentially, otherwise he doesn't get to develop his Manta Rider, which is one of the main win conditions in this deck. But yeah, Uriel with a relentless pursuit here, And he's not even playing Runan, so...
Yeah, Manta Rider does survive really nicely, though. Again, because it has so much value out of the creature surviving, the Manta surviving afterwards. It is difficult to deal with this, and body blocks really nicely. So Lu is really making the most of it at this stage. Almost a situation where you wonder how much Uriel trades instead of pushing, just 2 damage to the orb this turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder as well. This must be a tough choice. We could also go for the full clear and then just Salmon to cycle.
Yeah, the issue with that is that you then leave nothing on board. And then if your opponent draws into something like a Windstorm Charger, even a Fanatic or an Outland Ranger, just a creature, I think you end up really far behind. You want to be that first advantage in this type of situation, instead of allowing your opponent to have that tempo of getting that first creature down. And it's pretty tough right now to see which kind of decision line is the best to go for here.
Yeah, I mean, if you have still prayers and followers left on the deck that can just hit face, and then you draw into your Crusaders eventually, I think you might be in a decent spot.
I was actually just going to ask what you think about this type of a line of clearing the Manta Rider, Soul Drain the Manta, and then 5 damage to the orb with the Demon Wing. And that looks like Uriel has decided that is what's the best line for him right here.
Yeah.
This also keeps the Demon alive, which continues that self-burn. Oh!
Great pickup, though.
Colossus is massive here. Now, you're still on the back foot, but Colossus could dash straight up to your opponent's orb, and you start putting them on the clock. One of the biggest things really historically throughout all of Faeria is playing against Yellow Rush is finding the time to turn the game from defending and them having so much time to where you can get even just one creature and put them on a clock. And then it's very difficult for the Yellow Rush player to make some of those decisions of when do I step back and need to respect that creature. And Colossus can be a big swing in this game.
Yeah, definitely. Colossus in itself is a 3-turn clock. So the only question is Lu going to play it aggressive? He's going to play to collect, actually. Okay.
Oh, I really would have liked to have seen that be an aggressive position there, especially with what we would expect be the Wind Soldiers in the deck as well. Lu could have set up possibly a 2-turn clock, depending on the way he draws. Now getting the Shaitan Demon could have played that aggressively as well, and now he's just stuck really doing nothing again until he has to respond to whatever Uriel draws.
Yeah, and we already see follower in hand. That card is just waiting for a prayer. Praying on the prayer draw. And yeah, it's a tough spot still for Lu. I mean, he has a Colossus out, which helps immensely in clearing. Oh, there's the Nightmare though.
I don't even know if you respect Colossus enough to Nightmare here. It's just collecting. You're under no threat. Yes, it is going to represent killing any of your creatures as soon as they come down, but you have haste. Like, that is the way the deck operates, is getting all of these haste creatures hitting one after another into the orb. So I don't even know if you respect the Colossus enough in this type of situation to use the Nightmare at this point.
I mean, you already saw 2 Soul Drains being used, and so the best remaining answer is still the One Soldier, which would still not be a good enough answer for the Cannabis follower, since it's still a bad trade. So I think you just Nightmare here and then you hit face with the follower. Alternatively, you could also collect. That way you deny even the Wind Soldier, and then you gain 2 Faeria from collecting this turn and the next turn after that.
Yeah, the play for that would be to place a Desert directly above the Colossus, collect there, then last Nightmare, and then I guess move the Colossus down, or the follower down to where the Colossus was standing. But looks like he's going to go for what was your original line here. Oh no, goes for the collection anyway. That's really awkward. Could have done that in a different way there and not had to +1 Faeria because of the collection.
I guess you end up with an additional Faeria this way, right?
Yeah, that is true. Instead of a Desert off to the side, which doesn't really represent hitting the orb.
This Windstone though, that's a really good draw for Lu again.
Yeah, it moves into a body blocking position there. You just saw Last Nightmare used by your opponent, so really nice nice pickup. Just a creature that's going to survive here.
So I wonder if you go for the elemental at this point. And it looks like it, yeah. And again, Lu with the choice. Either he kills the follower, or he takes 4 to the face. And Nightmare, not really what you're looking for. I guess you can still trade and then you Flash Wound on the desert to collect and use Nightmare. But it's so bad. Even blocking with the demon here is really not what Lu wants to do.
No, it's not. Even something like killing the follower and then Flash Wind the air elemental back a space really doesn't achieve anything. I guess you could kill the elemental and choking sand the follower, but that feels really bad as well. Lu's just not finding good options in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, he could use a few more soul drains. if he would have checked in a 4th or 5th or even 6th soul drain, maybe this would have been winnable. But at this point, even with the Colossi being at 5, which is usually really good and tends to turn around again, this is looking quite meek.
Oh, and the demon does come down. This is a fairly risky play by Lu just because of that self-damage like we've been talking about, but it is a play that he feels like he needs to make in this situation.
Is he looking at Wind Soldier to collect and then...
Yeah, Wind Soldier
gonna
collects and clears, and that opens up the monk path as well. Really nice play by Uriel here.
Yeah. Draws another monk.
And there's the charger finally, but it looks like it's just going to be too late here for Lu. That self-damage from the demon is still going to exist next turn, and there's no way he can stop either the Wind Soldier or the Origin Monk coming through. And that looks like next game it will be, next turn it will be Uriel taking the game.
Yeah. Really not much Lu can do here.
I think the only thing that could have been different would have been the aggressive Colossus instead of the defensive one. But then Uriel drew the Last Nightmare anyway, so I don't know if that line even works out. It would have been very close, but based on what Lu drew, it just was no comeback possible. Didn't get the creatures, all of your support tools really, instead of the creature that you needed.
And of course, Demon being strictly worse when played defensive.
Yeah, and it ended up, I think between the two of them, dealt 8 damage to himself there. He's able to recover a little bit of it with the soul drains, but really tough when that's the only creature and your opponent is perfectly fine with it living because it continues to burn you down. Exactly.
I like the deck choice here. Yellow Rush as an opening deck, expecting people to run Yellow Tempo as an opener, so you can counter with Yellow Rush and then cheese out a win.
Yeah, the last couple months we've seen some Rush decks be actually very powerful as your opener. We've seen Yellow Rush. I believe we saw Green Rush from Lu last month, possibly the month before, but we also saw Red Rush from I Win Again as his opener 2 months ago in the monthly cup. And it's always an interesting choice having that as your starter because you can surprise people. You have this expectation that people are going to play more control style of deck or that tempo style where you're expecting to have consistent matchups, and you're able to get at them so quickly before they're even able to set up and take a game right away.
Oh, and that's a very nice opener here for Uriel. Yes, the Elemental, that means he has access to the Flash Summon this turn. Won't be able to quite use the Wrangler yet.
Yeah, but unfortunately it would be one Faeria off, so it looks like he's going to save for a turn here.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if this is a situation where you get like your Ground Shaker down just to have a big creature, or if you think you need to save that for more value.
I think in this case it's good to keep the Ground Shaker, since you have another collector, so keeping that seems fine at first. And then you just wait for all the little stuff to be played. The 1 HP minions.
Yeah, it gets really nice value clear onto Demon Wrangler, Follower, and Oradrim Monk, all 3 very powerful cards that you can get a lot of value back by saving that Ground Shaker.
So I imagine we see a Wind Soldier here just to get rid of the X Grinder. And then you could follow that up with a Salmon, or maybe you want to keep Salmon for the Kalim's Prayer. Which I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do. Because on the one hand you want the card cycle and the buff on the Zealous Crusader, but on the other hand you want to find your prayer and then you want to play a Salmon to activate the prayer.
Yeah, and it's tough as well because Salmon is a pretty good target for your Demon Wrangler. It only costs 1 and you can turn that into a 5/2. But like you're saying, it doesn't get that cycle. So it's a tough decision. We've seen Salmon be, like you mentioned, a very powerful card coming out of the Oversky expansion, but it's very difficult to decide what is the best line with it, whether it's clearing, using it for a sack target, or getting that cycle in.
And it looks like we see the clear here, and the Cypher coming down as well. Ugh, and Cypher is a creature you don't want to see as a rush player.
Yeah, Cypher's really difficult to deal with for this deck, unless you have a massive advantage and Cypher is there all in play and you just Last Nightmare it right away. It's actually very difficult for this deck to keep up with Cypher snowballing. Even off just 1 or 2 creatures, it can get really out of control.
So we see the Oradrim Monk here, just to get just to try to get these prayers, which Ural hasn't had any so far.
Yeah, Follower now could be +1, and then Follower hit the orb and Demon Wrangler in behind. Lou currently doesn't have enough Faeria to Ground Shaker off of that, so would be possibly one of the best spots to have that line of creatures on the board and not get punished for it.
Yeah, you gotta take your chances when your opponent doesn't have the Faeria to play the AoE. And I think this turn is one of these turns where you should just go all in. And I guess you hope your opponent doesn't run Bloodsong. Gift of Steel. Not quite.
No, not what you're looking for here. And this actually means Lou is in an awkward spot. The Demon Wing will do enough damage. Cypher will almost be low enough. I think it will be low enough for the Wind Soldier to clear it off, and then maybe you can stabilize from there. But not drawing any form of clear here actually hurts Lou a lot.
Oh,
Very nice clear in the end.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward for Ural. Doesn't really have a way of dealing with the Cypher as of now.
Lou has actually defended really well with his lands. One of the points people always go towards with playing against Yellow Rush is exactly this type of a setup. Funnel them right through the middle so that once you have one creature alive that they can't deal with, you sit on their only attack angle. So even with that air elemental start, Ural was funneled right up the middle corridor here, and Lou has done a great job of containing the lands besides that middle point. Cypher doesn't look like it'll get cleared anytime soon, and that means that Ural doesn't have any way to attack the orb with all these haste creatures.
Yeah, unless he would make a desert and then play the sun there to cycle. I guess that's a possibility.
Yeah, it looks like that's what he's going to have to go for here.
Have we seen Crystal Flower coming out of Ural Be Damned last game? I don't think we have.
No, I don't believe we saw any. Crystal Flower has been something that's been teched into Yellow Rush. However, seeing that Choking Sand in hand, we saw Last Nightmare. I think usually it's those removal choices that are pulled out to put flowers in. So I don't think we'll see flowers in this deck unless it's maybe a 1 or very hard to squeeze in a 2 of.
Oh, and there's the prayer. A little bit too late though. I guess you could still hit face with the other Salmon next turn. So it's not the end of the world. And Underground Boss, he's really happy that he didn't get choked. So the brigand instead had to put his feet to the fire.
Yeah, that's a big value swing in terms of the brigand getting cleared there and what the boss could represent by not getting cleared by a sand now.
Yeah. And these underground creatures really get so much value just by hitting into followers, monks, etc. It's basically like a whole new level of economy. Oh, we do see a second! That's amazing!
That is an incredible draw there for Ural.
He gets
I would expect to start with
then...
the Salmon Prayer cycle here.
Yeah. And that second choking, really good.
Yeah, I don't think you draw anything that's good enough to not just choking sand the boss and call it a turn. One of the things, like I talked about in the last game there, is because of the way Lou is playing so defensively, he has to play that way right now, but it just gives the Yellow Rush player all the time in the world to wait. And that's a big thing right now. Cypher is stuck sitting in the middle. Every other creature that comes down is being cleared right away. So it's just a matter of time before Ural is able to, like he now has, either the Soldier and Wind Soldier option to clear Cypher, or just wait for that last Nightmare, and then he opens up that attack angle again, and he's able to start hitting the orb.
Yeah. I mean, what Lou wants to do is really step up with the Cypher, and then maybe try to Horse Master next turn to hit face. But he can't do that, otherwise he leaves his orb open on 3 spots. And it's usually not that great against the yellow player. So
we're
we
gonna
see
see the
Flash Diamond
again.
Looks like it. And
Gonna go for the Demon Wrangler, so this isn't bad. This at least forces Cypher to do something here. It either forces it to step up or over to clear the Demon Wrangler, or it dies to the Demon Wing. Now, Lou has a basically full hand, so he should have lots of options to deal with this, but Ural feels like this is his best option right now to open up the attack angles again.
Yeah. And those Crusaders have been getting real big. It's just a matter of time when Ural will be drawing them. And then
Lou is at 13, which usually looks pretty good against Rush. Normally they deal anywhere from 2 to 5 damage in one swing, but this has been 3 Flash Salmons to the orb, so that means the rest of the damage has come through 2 damage swings. So that Crusader is, I think, an 8/8 if I've done that properly.
Well, whatever he is mighty strong, and he can't wait to see the daylight here. Not this time though. You'll have to be patient, I guess.
Cypher's Wrath picked up is very big here for Lou. He could Cypher's Wrath and Ground Shaker if he chooses to. And then, of course, moving that Cypher up a spot, that's like what you talked about on the previous turn with that Horse Master in hand. You want Cypher in a position where it can actually clear.
Yeah. So we see Monk come down and maybe the follower even? I don't know. We'll have to see.
Monk draws Maceman. Maceman is definitely something that you want much earlier in the game, not as impactful here. Could represent being a good defensive option against Cypher, but it's just not going to do as much when Cypher is going to hit the orb. It's not going to be enough time.
Yeah. I wonder if Lou goes for the aggressive mountain here. If he doesn't, Ural is still looking very strong.
I don't know that you need to do any... I guess you would look for the aggressive mountain because that allows you to play a creature next turn. Cypher being at 4 is still low enough that he could get cleared. And we see the Soldiering Wind Soldier in hand, which would be an option to clear Cypher, and then that puts the pressure back off of Ural here. So I think you need to take that aggressive mountain just to be able to reinforce with another creature.
Damn, now the prey has been picked up. And I think Ural would have liked to draw that instead last turn, instead of +1ing. So yeah, let's see what he does. Goes for the Nightmare, it seems.
Interesting. I guess you use the Nightmare there, 1, because you have the Faeria 2, but 2, because that saves the Wind Soldier for possible burst near the end of the game, but really just needed to deal with Cypher in that situation.
But Flameburst setting up lethal here. And a second prayer coming down, not quite what you're looking for. Yeah, so either the Gift of Steel or the Flameburst can both get the Axe Grinder to deal 8 damage to the orb.
He'll also be at enough Faeria as long as the Horsemaster survives to collect. Looks like the Horsemaster is going to die here. Actually, I think with the Axe Grinder surviving, you're still fine to +1 and Flameburst and Gift of Steel, or double Gift of Steel on the next turn here, and that should be enough to find the lethal.
Picks up another Soul Drain.
Ooh, Soul Drain I think needed to be used there. There should be lethal here for Lu with the +1. Yeah, would have needed to use the other Soul Drain, and then Euro would have survived with 1, but still very difficult to come back even from that point. A very nice showcase of defending against Yellow Rush there by Lu.
Yeah, and we saw the power of Cypher. It ended up costing him a nightmare as well. It traded a lot of stuff in this game. So overall, what can we expect here as a counter to red? I mean, the classic one would be mono green, right?
Yeah, it depends on what Ural is running. If he's running the standard of green blue and then a red combat, it just depends how confident he would feel in the mirror versus how confident he feels in something like that green blue. Of course, green has been historically the counter to red just because they have these bigger creatures that red can't keep up with, but it really just depends on what Ural is running in his lineup.
I've had the feeling though that in some games Gift of Steel was match deciding, and also the Bomb Slingers. Green can have a hard time dealing with those since they don't have any damage removals such as pings. And Falcon Dive, for example, was quite popular in green from time to time.
Yeah, it also was helped way back with the introduction of Emperor's Command because you have the versatility on that dealing with the Bomb Slingers as well. Looks like we are going to see the mirror match here, going for that red, so not feeling confident in whatever his third deck is against the red combat. And Lu picks up an early Cypher. We saw this be very good earlier in the day when you can get it down in this type of a matchup.
Especially when paired with mobility such as the Silent Horsemaster. Then Cypher just can get really, really big and out of control. So standard opening here from Ural. We see Axe Grinder come down. Then probably Lu, I guess he could either double land or set up the underground boss, make a mountain for that boss.
Yeah, double land is so difficult here because you're basically just saying, please don't have a Horsemaster. Because if this was Horsemaster, Axe Grinder runs it straight down and you lose so much control over this side of the board, but not having it there, we should see the underground boss come down for Ural, and that is a big creature as well. The first underground creature on the board is very important, especially with that Gift of Steel follow-up.
Yeah, for sure. However, Ural is locked out of playing Axe Grinder aggressive and has no access to 3 Faeria 4/5s in this game. If Lu decides to go for the mountain between the wells, which I think he is going to. So that's always an important point, I think, in the red mirror, is who gets the Axe Grinder spot and who gets control over the double collection spot, really.
It's just a matter of what does Lu play in that situation. If he's going to take the interior spot, even if he's going to take the mountain spot between all the creatures right now in that opening, is it going to be Ground Shaker in there? Is it play Underground Boss and hope that your opponent doesn't punish you with a Gift of Steel? Is it mountain somewhere over there and move the Axe Grinder back and wait a turn for Cypher? There's so many decisions right now of what do you think your opponent has and what are you expecting to play around?
Exactly. And Gift of Steel always a threat. You can't just drop a boss here. Unless you're willing to trade it off.
Yeah, this is a situation where I think if Lu had Gift of Steel, he would instantly Underground Boss plus Gift of Steel in that spot. But looks like it's going to be Ground Shaker instead to play the tankier creature, which is going to easily be dealt with a Gift of Steel in Ural's hand.
Yeah, things are not looking that great for Lu at this point. So I could imagine you just mountain here and then step into the wells. I think you want to keep making mountains because you run Cap 10 as well. I think as well Captain is a very, very good card in the mirror. Just because it's such a sturdy body and you drawing these Gift of Steels, it's gotta be one hell of a ride.
Yeah, Cap 10 is so perfect in the stat line in this type of a matchup. It has 3 attacks, so it easily deals with unbuffed Axe Grinders, Underground Brigands. It also gets buffed perfectly to 6 to deal with everything else with 1 Gift of Steel. And then it has 7 life, which is outside of the range of all of the other creatures that could come down once they've had, whether they have a Gift of Steel on them or not.
Yeah. Cyphers here is a nice pickup for Lu. Being able to deal with the underground creature without triggering the combat. That's a huge momentum swing. Otherwise he would have just given Ural more and more value. But now he can actually set up a boss if he chooses to. It's a big weak to Ground Shaker though. But that's about it.
I think you're either looking at Horsemaster in between the wells so that you clear the Axe Grinders into each other, or you're looking at +1 into the boss here. I think I like Horsemaster because you could actually go for a double Prairie play, and then next turn kind of double Prairie all the way across and get an aggressive Axe Grinder spot inside the well up in the top right corner because you know your opponent's trying to fight for double well position. It's just so early in the game that type of a play really doesn't need to be made, but it was something that Lu could have gone for in that situation.
Yeah. Looks like he went for a more conservative line with playing the boss behind, and we see the Cyphers coming down. Now, it's a back and forth here, really. That's what it is.
I really like this by Ural. He already has a Bomb Slinger in hand, but he plays the one that he just drew to make it look like, you know, whatever else is in hand isn't as good. Maybe it's a Gift of Steel that doesn't have a combat creature to go on right now, but that should indicate to Lu that, you know, maybe he doesn't have another Bomb Slinger in his hand right now, and then that next one can come down being a surprise. So I really like the play the one you just drew instead of play the one that you already had in hand.
Yeah, it's also it's just all about the mind games, really.
Yep.
Another thing is it puts your opponent on tilt. If your opponent just happens to top deck all the right answers, then you automatically get frustrated.
I think out of most of the players that are in the monthly cup, I would put Lu as one of the ones who would be least affected by that style of play, of getting tilted by top decks.
Yeah, I guess, but you still might want to try, right? Everyone's human.
Yeah,
even
that
Lu.
is very true. So Lu really looking like his only option here is either go for the Horsemaster play or draw and hope that you find something. It's just that draw, I think, puts you very far behind if it doesn't hit. Goes for the +1 so that he has more options next turn, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and Ural picking up a Horsemaster himself. Now, do you go for it, or do you actually just wait and play the Underground boss? You could get a very aggressive neutral tile here, and I think that's what he's going for.
Yeah, and this does reinforce his well position. If it's a Ground Shaker that he's expecting to come out from Lu, the Horsemaster survives, and then it can hit the Ground Shaker, possibly follow up with a Bomb Slinger. So having gone for that +1 last turn, Ural thinks that something big is coming down, and he plays into what should be the most outs on this turn.
Yeah, looks like Lu's gonna set up a Cypher here in the middle of the orb, and then he's looking to get a good trade with the Horsemaster, I think. Well, at least playing Cypher here represents a threat, so Ural won't be able to drop any combat creatures next to Lu's orb.
Yeah, this so so much telegraphs that he has a Horse Master, I think, though. Maybe it doesn't because you're expecting these aggressive moves and Cypher is still within range of killing them, but I think it very much telegraphed a Horse Master in hand, and then it just depends on what the follow-up is after that.
Ooh, Firestorm, yeah. Gotta be able to pick off 2 creatures and leave the Cypher unharmed, which is really nice.
I think now that you've drawn another Bomb Slinger, you have to go for the Firestorm here. It's an Lou hovering over all of his cards. It's unfortunate in that situation because Cypher still ends up in no man's land. He's not collecting. He's not in a position to fight any creatures, and he's not in an aggressive spot. But I don't think there's kind of a better option because Bomb Slinger deals enough damage to Cypher that it then sets up a second Bomb Slinger very nicely.
Yeah. You would have much rather liked to have a Cypher's Wrath here for the Bomb Slinger kill, or even a Ground Shaker, so that he could take the trade with the Horse Master and grow Cypher.
Yeah, it would have been very nice to have one of those other options, but Lou drawing into more of the reactionary cards that aren't as suited to what was on the board.
And a Shaker of his own, You'll be damned, finally finds his one. He's gonna deal with the Cypher. So aggressive Shaker, I could imagine. And then defensive Brigand to collect, like really, really far back with the Brigand. So that way you can't get Horse Mastered.
I think that he should still have that in his mind. There is a Horse Master in hand. I think Lou did telegraph that. So the Brigand shouldn't come between the wells here. It should go in that super defensive position if it's going to be played. Is maybe a situation where Uriel is just saving Faeria as much as he can.
Yeah. Ooh, Housemaster to block and Cypher to collect. Alright.
A Gift of Steel picked up, so I would expect Uriel probably still goes for the draw. That's been kind of just what he's been going for all game so far. Especially with the way his mountains are set up, he has good Bomb Slinger positions, he has aggressive creature positions, he has defensive creature positions. So really would have just been looking for something like a Cypher's Wrath in that situation to go Bomb Slinger Cypher's Wrath and kill off Cypher, but Boss Gift of Steel, just as good. Cypher can't do anything to either of these creatures right here.
Yeah. I guess you could Firestorm here and clear the board, but again, that's leaving your opponent with a Faeria advantage.
He looks like he is hovering it.
Yep.
And is going to go for it. So essentially resetting the board. Uriel up 2 from that combat trigger on the boss, but Lou +1 at the end of turn. So Uriel with 5 Faeria to spend, Lou just with 4 on the next turn. But it is a reset there after the Firestorm.
And double Brigand is the best answer you can have here. Your opponent won't be able to deal with both of them. But the best answer here is a Bomb Slinger?
Yeah, Bomb Slinger clears the one, but the combat trigger into the Ground Shaker is a massive response from Uriel. And here's what we've been talking about really all day, this combat effectiveness, especially when you're hitting the orb. To get that extra Faeria is massive in these type of situations.
And looks like Uriel can just set up lethal here with a Gift of Steel. I guess he goes for Pirate.
Yeah, it doesn't even need to Gift of Steel this turn. Very easily could have and just set your opponent to 1, but boss comes down and Uriel will have the extra damage that he needs, will have the attack angles that he needs by creating another land, and will take a very nice, I would say actually a very back and forth game, even though it felt like Uriel was at an advantage since the very early turns. Lou did almost bring it back there.
He had a pretty terrible hand though, to be fair.
Yes.
You don't want to find double Bomb Slinger and double Firestorm in your first few cards. Those are not going to help you that much in the mirror.
There's
especially
not a lot of...
If you are that low on Faeria, and on a... Like Lou is on the back foot this whole game, basically because he didn't have the Gift of Steel.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of situations where you get the maximum value out of Firestorm. A lot of times you end up with situations like Lou had there where, yes, it clears the board, but your opponent then has that first advantage. And there was a lot of very good follow-ups for Uriel, got Ground Shakers in the right situations. And Lou did have some nice plays with the Cypher's Wraths in a couple good spots, but yeah, it just wasn't enough to recover when you're Firestorming, but leaving an open board.
Willow, however, might be a good... Oh, Willow and a Golem.
Yeah, so I actually tuned into Gravekeeper's stream very briefly to watch the match between Lou and Sunkichi over there in the quarterfinals, and noticed that these Therian Golems are in Lou's list. And I was very surprised by that because the ramp generally wants to go pretty even between green and blue. So having what looks like a more green-focused deck that can, only build 2 lakes, for example, to play into things like your Frog Tossers. Maybe you only need 1 for the Water Elemental here and there, but it looks like it is mostly a green deck with the Therian Golems in there, and then you have your Sky Whales for late game.
It's a pretty greedy list, though. I saw him playing Fugus as well, so that's gonna take some time as well to ramp up.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there are...
If you get to the late game, though, it's gonna be insane.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it has...
5 Faeria 5/10s and 3 Faeria 5/6s with jump. Sign me up.
Definitely value big bodies. Definitely looks like there could be, situations where you end up with what we would call dead hands, where you can't play anything for, 5-6 turns. But decent start here for Lou. Has the Willow, has the Wood Elemental, and an Elderwood Embrace for the buff in hand. So should be set up decently enough to start the game here. It just depends on how quickly Yura will recognize that it is a ramp style and how aggressive he wants to be.
I think he's looking forward to picking up a Horsemaster here. That's his best bet. And then trying to deny that Willow value, as we've seen it being done a couple of times in this tournament so far. Just hitting into the Willow to deny possible feed value is something you can have to do, I think.
It's actually interesting because Lou has only shown green so far. Ural has that Gift of Steel in hand, and I'm very interested if he's going to step up and preemptively Gift of Steel, even though if it was a mono green, he could have that Voice of Truth in the back of his head. But if he was watching the other stream like I mentioned I was, he would have that information to know that it's not just mono green, and it does have the blue in there as well, so you're not as likely looking at something like the Voice of Truth.
Yeah, and wow, this Golem coming down here is a massive play for Lou.
Yeah, and this is going to probably force a retreat out of Uriel, and that's going to give Lou a ton of time to then ramp into his lakes, to then get value out of the Frog Tossers, to get to the Sky Whale points, and actually looks like it's a pretty comfortable position for Lou now.
Yeah, definitely. The tides have turned, that the cowardly Willow is fleeing, and the mighty Golem has stepped into its place. I guess you could try to get value with a Cypher somehow here. If your game plan is to take value trades with Cypher and then you grow it by hitting into a Willow or something, maybe you have a chance at winning. But at this point, it's looking pretty bleak.
Yeah, the only way that I could see Cypher getting enough value for it to actually snowball in this game, especially with the current board state, is if Uriel was running any grappling hooks at all. Get that ranged attack, move Cypher around the board, and outmaneuver this giant golem. But with having seen probably most of his deck through the game that we saw, I wouldn't expect that is played in this type of a list. So going to be very difficult for Cypher to pick up any value.
Yeah. And these Sky Whales, they are also helping, taking care of the Cypher. Because once you drop a big creature, it's just gonna get whaled, and then you lose your advantage.
Yeah, very true. I mean, right now it is on Uriel to make the plays because he's on a clock. The Golem's going to slowly move up the board. The Sky Whales are eventually going to come out. and it's just not a situation where you have the time to continue to play as passively as he currently is, but you can't get through this golem right now.
Oh, I think Euro should have stepped up right there. So the golem doesn't move up. And then you continue to apply more pressure, but this is just looking very, very bad right now.
Yeah, if there was a firestorm, this could be a very good spot for it, but without having that in hand, or even just a flame burst to follow up onto the golem, if it's going to trade into the ground shaker here, it's very difficult. It looks like Cypher's Wrath should pick up off the Frog Tosser on the far side, but he really needs something else as the follow-up here.
Yeah, and maybe stepping back was a bait, and really you're trying to get the golem away from Luzor so that he could pressure him with more combat creatures.
Earthcraft picked up is pretty nice here. Lou could actually get a Sky Whale in an aggressive spot on the top right corner well, either pushing up. I guess you want to Sky Whale to swallow the Ground Shaker, but you'd really like to continue to move the Therian Golem up the board, so maybe you Earthcraft over on that side and play the Sky Whale over there instead.
Yeah, you could also just swallow the Brigand to deny Faeria, which might be something that Lou's considering. Starving your opponent of Faeria is always very good.
It's much better when they're on 0, though. Euro currently sitting on 5. It's not like that 2 Faeria makes much of a difference unless you don't think your opponent's playing something like Garridan as a catch-up. Firestorm is still able to be played next turn, and your Golem hitting into the Ground Shaker plays right into that. So I'm not sure if that's something where starving your opponent at this stage is really as much of a necessity.
I guess. Well, holy, with a feat you can double whale here. I haven't really noticed.
Yeah, that was a very big pickup. Also has the Frog Tosser as well, so could go for that, but now...
It's just double whale charm, I think.
I think you just double whale, yeah.
Yeah. And wow, what a great turn for Lou.
Yeah, and as much as I talked about, Firestorm is still within range, now it does nothing, so...
Oh, there's the Garridan! He would have had AoE.
Yeah, would have had enough for it, so denying that Faeria, definitely the right play to go for. As much as I was saying it probably won't matter, in this situation it very much matters.
And yeah, what do you do against these whales? They're not even that slow. They have charge 3, so those are some fast whales charging at your orb.
Unfortunately, only one of them in line to actually hit the orb this turn, but the other one will be moved up the board. I would assume Therian Golem just moves up a space, and then the Sky Whale on the left will hit the orb this turn. That should set up a 2-turn lethal here for Lou, especially with that Elderwood Embrace picked up this turn.
And Skywards with buffs are just the thing that Red doesn't want to see. And yeah.
And there it is. Lou with a very quick game. These green-blue ramp generally takes a while to develop, wants to chip away an advantage with things like the Frog Tossers, but in that type of a situation, Lou showing why he has included Golems in his list, just because they're that strong when you get them out early in the game.
Yeah, definitely surprised by the Golem pick, but they do make sense, and they paid off, it seems.
Especially in this type of a matchup where you're playing against the red combat. We talked earlier how that is, the color that generally has been good against red is the big green. Ooh, an ugly hand here to start with for Lou, though.
Yeah, he however, has the Earthcraft, so that's going to be an additional card draw, which might enable him to play a Willow as an early game collector. And Euro, what looks like to be a ramp deck himself, plays the Deepwood Stalker though, so that might indicate stuff like Oakling. It's gonna buff your hand creatures.
Yeah, this could just be a I mean, we saw a very interesting one from, I believe it was Kahilian last monthly cup that had things like Aridin. I think it had one of a Tiki totem, and it was based around what we saw before in like the Tree of Everlife decks, which is still having the Deepwood Stalkers, the Frog Tossers for damage from hand, but you're looking at these little buffs instead of what used to be the big buffs out of Tree of Everlife.
Yeah.
Just want to
I don't
quickly
think
add around
many
the
people
technical
run Tree
difficulty with
anymore
Faeria
necessarily.
right now.
And there's
No,
the Willow.
after the nerf, it was hit pretty hard. But yeah, there's the Willow, like you were saying. Really nice pickup here.
So could have actually went for the Earthcraft last turn, but I guess he really wanted to choose side, and now he gets rewarded for doing so. And I think it also ends up being the same, because you get the Willow and double collection, and that equals 2 collections from one well, if you manage to get the double collect in.
Instead of something like having played the Earthcraft and the Willow last turn, he would have collected on this turn. Next turn you'll collect 2 instead of going 1-1 type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Also sets up the Willow within range. I think that was really nice holding on to see where Ural committed as well, because with that Elderwood Embrace, the Willow now is in a position where it can clear any early creatures. So I think in this situation, Ural has to switch sides. I don't think he can continue to push up towards the Willow here anymore.
But switching sides does kind of hurt, actually. You don't want to give your opponent that double collect necessarily.
It depends on how...
This is also nice. You move out of range and you set up double collect yourself.
Yeah, that is a really nice one there. It depends on how you think your deck fares against your opponents in this situation, because as much as you don't want them to double collect, if you're double collecting, it's an equal trade. So it depends on how good you think your late game is versus theirs. Now, having seen the Ethereum Golems come out from Lu's deck, Ural probably thinks he has to contest a little more than he would like in this type of situation. But it's definitely a how do you think your deck fares late game versus theirs of double collect, allowing them to double collect at the cost of yourself double collecting.
Yeah. And the pre-buff here. So not respecting a potential Flower. I guess Flower has fallen out of the meta though. We haven't seen Flower at all.
I don't believe we've seen Flower at all through the course of the day. It definitely hasn't been played, but I don't think I've even seen it in somebody's hand, in somebody's mulligan, anything so far.
Yeah, and that just goes to show how little of a nerf that one Faeria can be, and what big of a difference that can make. So yeah, Ural here has probably a few options. I think he might opt into Fugaro, just to set up another double collector and to cycle your deck really.
Yeah, it doesn't have any good options currently against this Living Willow. Even just that one buff being very difficult for him to handle. So Fugaro, and then the problem right now is I guess Fugaro doesn't have any good spots to come down. I think would want to collect with this Wood Elemental over here, but then Fugaro is in an awkward spot. Actually can't even play Earthcraft first, right? Forgot about that one in hand.
Gets a whale. I'd be surprised if he goes for anything else than the Gabriel Urn.
You don't think that situation could have been Medallion, and then you play Skywhale to swallow your own Fugaro, and then Medallion that Skywhale? So then you have 6/6s everywhere, and each of them is going to spawn a 3/5 afterwards?
I don't think that's how it works. It would be awesome though, if it would have worked like that. If I remember correctly, you just get the base.
The base,
copy.
it doesn't have the creature in it.
Yeah.
Would be pretty insane of a play to have that Medallion synergy if that was the case.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
I mean, we just continue to see a slow game here. Both players comfortable playing off to the far sides, waiting for their late game conditions. Lu, of course, wanting to get to those leaping Fugus as quick as possible. Now getting a Water Elemental allows him to possibly Frog Tosser this turn, depending on how comfortable he feels with that. But
what do you tussle though?
The Wood Elemental, I guess, is the best one. Although if you go for the Water Elemental, you probably... it's a 50-50 on if you get that Toad to land in a good spot.
If you go for the water elemental, you deny one collection, I guess. So there's that. If you go for the wood elemental, yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely would have liked the frog on the far side forest rather than within trade range of the wood elemental. Now we see those deepwood stalkers would have cleared the frog anyway, but just able to clear it with the wood elemental is so much more important here.
Yeah. And Yura can already play whale here. So you can swallow the willow and then play the skywhale aggressive, I suppose.
Yeah, it depends on how aggressive you want to be in this type of situation. Because you could also just deepwood stalker and clear off the frog tosser. That doesn't really accomplish anything. You could frog tosser, lose water elemental as a response here. That doesn't really accomplish anything. So
yeah,
I mean, skywhale might be your best option in this situation.
Because, again, as you mentioned, you don't deny Lure the double collect. He still has, in any case, he still has 2 creatures to double collect. So there's really no point in using Stalker right here as a removal.
It's actually interesting in this type of a matchup. I think your first hard removal, if we want to call it that way, with the Skywhales, is better than any other matchup. Because most of the time, players are just exchanging, blow for blow with their big stuff. But in this type of matchup, with that swallow mechanic, the whale comes down and swallows a creature. The next whale can't swallow that whale because of the way the mechanic works. So it's actually interesting that is the way that it would play out.
Yeah. I remember back in the Apex meta when it was basically when basically everyone would wait and no one wanted to play the first Apex in the mirror. So both of you were just patiently waiting and then lurking in the shadows.
Yeah, it was basically unless you could play 2 in one turn so that you could guarantee you get a big chunk of damage in, you did not want to play 1 because then theirs was going to be that much bigger. Unless you had a second one and then you could get the bigger one afterwards. So it was a big, bluff match of who has the next Apex, who's going to, play the first one. It's similar in this now of who wants to play that first threat.
Yeah, and I mean, the Fugus might be able to carry this, honestly. If Ural doesn't find more whales or creations for those whales, I don't think there's much he can do against the power of Fugus.
Yeah, but this now is, Ural setting up for a bunch of damage. And there is a Skywhale, so the only good target for that would be to take Fugaro. Cannot swallow the Skywhale of Ural here. And if Lu doesn't go for the Skywhale, that's 9 damage currently looking at hitting the orb there next turn.
Yeah. It's so awkward having Fugo at 5 attack, because it doesn't really trade into the Skywhale that well.
Therian Golem doesn't look that good here either. The double collection and that one remaining Faeria in the pool there for Ural means that Skywhale could just come down if he has a second one. So I don't think that Therian Golem's right to go for in this situation. Maybe it is play a Leaping Fugu and then Skywhale Fugaro, and if it's going to be a race, you're fine with that, but it's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. So plays the Fugu out of range of the Skywhale, but can still, if he picks up a buff, return to clear the whale.
Yeah, I think this is Fugaro hits the orb, second Skywhale eats Therian Golem, and then the first Skywhale hits the Fugu, and you just lock Lu out of the game. It looks like Ural is going to push more damage this turn, but I think that was a situation where he could have sealed it by not attacking the orb, which is kind of an odd way to say it, but that's the way that this deck works.
Yeah, so if you kill the Fugu instead, you're not really under any threat, right?
Yeah, in this situation, you've kind of allowed that double collection. Maybe he can't go for the double collection because there's too much pressure here, but Therian Golem now is possibly a way back in. The Fugu jumps over and kills Fuguro, and then Therian Golem can come down right there, and maybe you have a chance, but it's still very close.
Yeah. And taking 6 to the face, that's gonna be a rough time.
And there it is. So what could Euro get here to possibly win the game right now? I don't think there's anything... I guess it would just be another Sky Whale to eat the Therian Golem would be the only possible
so either
option.
a whale or creation, basically, and he wins the game. That's not what you're looking for. So what do you do here? Do you taunt the Fugo and then just double trade the Golem? That way your opponent is locked out of playing any creatures?
Yeah, you can't do anything here. You don't have enough Faeria to create the extra land for like taunting the Shifting Octopus, but... And all the lands are so far away because Euro was able to get these Sky Whales down into these prairies. He doesn't have an aggressive land right now to actually play an aggressive creature, so 5/3 comes down. Feed the forest, is it going to be enough?
Ah, he can't free the Willa. It's a bit unfortunate. Wood Elemental is a taunt, but if he goes for that, we see the double Stalker actually doing work and then finding its target.
Wood Elemental looks really awful just because you have things like the Deepwood Stalker, you have the Frog Tosser as well, which very easily kills the Wood Elemental, so it just doesn't look like it's going to do enough here. Second Wood Elemental picked up. I think you feed the first one now.
Lou might not even think about double Stalker. He hasn't seen Stalker all game, and most of the lists don't run it anymore. So this might be Euro taking a cheeky victory.
Frog Tosser's still not going to do it. Wood Elemental sets up possibly another Wood Elemental. Maybe Sky Whale Frog Tosser, but you're really just hoping that you have enough. Frog Tosser looks like it's going to pick off the Wood Elemental on the side, and then I think you Sky Whale the Octopus to give yourself the most outs. But yeah, we can see that Deepwood Stalker is going to be enough to clear off the Wood Elemental, and the Sky Whale for Ural is going to take him into the Grand Finals.
Yeah. And that's the exchange of emotes being done already. It's almost like signing the peace treaty after a war. And then the big Sky Whale seals the deal. And that's gonna be a win. You Will Be Damned is in the final.
In his first monthly cup appearance, takes out Echo 2, another new player, 3-0. Takes out Minakaro, another monthly cup. Name that we've become accustomed to seeing in the monthly cups, 3-0. Takes out Sweetie 3-2 in the quarterfinals, and now Lou 90 in the semifinals, taking him to the grand finals. And we will send it back over the desk. Aquablad, who is he going to be facing?
You Will Be Damned. Wow. Taking out so many Titans in his journey through the monthly cup. And it looks like another Titan has fallen as well. Don Pork being the victor over Alva. So we're going to have a run back of the last finals, but not in the finals. It's going to actually be in the third place match. 2 bounties claimed at the same time. I do believe that is a first. Like, in this situation, it's absolutely crazy. So Don Pork, making that stretch, been participating in monthly cups for a long time, had some success back at the start of 2017, but now has the opportunity to take it from an up-and-coming player. You Will Be Damned, turning heads in this monthly cup. So yeah, we have 2 matches remaining. The third place game, which will be Lou and Alva fighting for $500 instead of $1,500 like last month. And then we'll have You Will Be Damned versus Don Pork to conclude this monthly cup. So we'll jump over to a break, get those players ready, and we will be back with more Faeria action.